What's going on, everyone? We are back to talk Season 1, Chaos Games, Yasawa Islands. We're here to talk about episode number 7, as well as bring in the person who got eliminated, voted out. And might I add, also, I'm probably sitting here tonight with 3 of the biggest talkers once we bring in that person that was voted out. But joining us, as always, is Robbie, and Alex is back to break down and speak with the exit interview person again. Thanks for coming back, Alex. And Robbie, what did you think of the episode?
I thought it started off in the perfect way. You had Karen sitting there. I mentioned this in the last exit interview that somehow nobody is suspecting her. And that's exactly what she says at the start of this episode where, she's just, I forget how she worded it. Like, I love how there's no eyes on me. I think it's how she said it. And that sums it up. And we see that a lot throughout this episode as well, how she does a really good job at just, pulling some strings, behind the scenes, but nobody thinks of her. When stuff goes down and people are trying to figure stuff out, her name never comes up. And that's incredible. That's incredible. I mean, this is episode 7. They're probably 9 hours into the mini at this point, give or take. And, her name is still not coming up. And that's impressive.
Yeah, without a doubt. And like you see later in this episode, her and Jeremy take a very ballsy move that could have went very badly for them. So you have this under the radar approach, but this willingness to go with a plan, stick with it, no matter what the other side of the vote is ending up, and just going with seeing what happens. Because if you win and you hit, it's money.
Yeah, and you're bang on with that. And we see David towards the beginning of the episode too saying how bleak everything looks. He has no allies left. He has no idols. He's got nothing to save him now. Carlo had just got sent home, and it is not looking good for David. So he's going to be grasping at straws too, right? Which kind of leads to a lot of the excitement in this episode. I don't know if we want to roll right into the immunity challenge because that's kind of how the episode rolls, but we get right into my poor brain. Is that what you called it?
Yeah, that's my poor brain. I do want to say, though, regarding David, the thing about it is he's so personable that he's able to suck you in when you have a conversation with him. So even though he is somewhat on the outs, he's so likable that people want to work with him. And that's a great quality to have, especially in a mini when you don't know that much about people, because you're going solely on, at the beginning, first impressions, and then you gravitate towards people that are very likable. And he's doing an excellent job so far.
Oh, extremely charismatic. And even when things are looking very bad, position wise, he's smiling about it. And, we saw when he attacked Corey, previously at Tribal Council, even when he's saying, hello, everybody, I want to vote that guy out right there in front of him. And here's why. And here's why you're all idiots for not doing it in a more polite way. Obviously, that wouldn't be a David thing to say. He's smiling and he's even polite about it. And I have a lot of respect for that because he's making a move, but he's doing it in a way where it's kind of like, I'm just having fun. But in case you don't realize, Corey's the biggest target in the game right now. So, all he needs one, and he's smiling while he does it. And like Corey doesn't even seem to be offended. If you remember back when Ryan was doing it, Corey's tone went louder and louder and louder, and they were bantering back and forth. The debate was much more heated. But when David was doing it, just because of David's mannerisms, Corey kind of said, well, sure, but, is that their move? It's your move. And he was being polite back. And that's a strength to have, because even when David was being attacked, the person attacking wasn't yelling at him. They were kind of just talking back and forth. And yeah, so even though he's kind of out of allies and out of tools, David still has that working for him. And he uses it in this episode.
Yeah, and you see that's also why you have people like Karen and Jeremy saying, like, this is why we still need to take him out. Like, yes, we will have to break each other apart. We can break each other apart now, or we could do it next round, because if he gets to the end, not only does he have original tribe members on there, like even some of us may feel more inclined to vote for him because we won't get burned by him. We could never be burned by him because we were against him. He's personable. He always has a smile on his face. And sometimes that's as much as it takes to get a vote. It's like, if you have a positive attitude in this game and you're working with other people who are more downtrodden or more game bot, they may respect more the person who just brought some joy and fun into the game.
For sure.
You know, and we roll through that immunity challenge, and once again, Phill wins. And
no, before you watched it, and just seeing
Yep.
everyone that's still left in the game, because you have to know they're very fatigued at this point. Your brain's all over the place because you're on a screen for, at this point, 8 hours for sure, with the numbers being so low. Did you think there was a clear front runner that would have potentially done well with this type of challenge? Because
David.
yes, that's what I thought as well.
I thought this was David's challenge, 8 times out of 10. You can never say 10 out of 10 with anything, but just because of the fact that even under pressure, like we mentioned, he stays calm, keeps his composure, and he's got a brain. Obviously, he sees what's going on, he understands, and I figured if there's somebody who's going to not screw up on this challenge, which is really ironic because we see at one point in the challenge, David loses the card on his desk, and the challenge keeps going. And he hadn't even shown for that round, I think. And then he's trying to find that card, and then McKenna's already asking for the next card, and he pulls up the one that he was looking for, which is then wrong because it's like the challenge has already moved on to the next. And you could tell when he lifted it and he realized that everybody else had moved on, he was like, ah. And I don't think that's because he got it wrong. I think that's just because he was behind. And I'm convinced that he had the right answers in his mind of where to go. He was just trying to catch up to show like I had it, but it was just too late at that point. And
tough challenge. That's the biggest thing, especially that's why we did it towards the end, because if you do it at the beginning, your brain is very sharp at that point, but once you get fatigued, it's hard to remember even just this little simple symbols.
Well, even just the rules. I mean, you had Phill showing his answer before you say reveal and giving everybody about 3 more seconds if they weren't sure to kind of flip them around and help themselves out there. But yeah, I mean, Corey goes out first. I think Karen went out second, and then a whole bunch of people after David, got knocked out. I think pretty much everybody else dropped, and out of nowhere, Phill takes it home again. That's pretty much the moral of this story here is Phill wins stuff.
Yeah. So with that, you have Phill winning, and he's now saying though, I would prefer to see Austin go before David. I want to see, we're seeing a pagonging. I know I helped cause this pagonging, but it was sort of like a self-preservation move of, let me see if I can get some good faith with my other allies that I have my 4 with. Austin's not in our 4. If you send out Austin now, we can take David next. It just assures me that our 4 is tight. And I think that was a good play by him.
Well, and this is an interesting part in the game, right? Because you have to ask yourself, like you're alluding to there, when we get to 5, am I in the 3 or am I in the 2? Right. And, Phill wants to be in the 3, and he has the power right now. He has that safety because he just won. It's the perfect time to make a move, because if somebody finds out that you're planning something, then you're still safe. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's going to be like, wait a minute, Phil's trying to flip, take him out. Well, you can't. I'm safe. So boo-hoo. And I think something that's underrated in this episode is Austin. He starts off the social round. What do you call it? The scramble?
Scramble round.
The scramble round. He's one of the first confessionals that we see, and he's offended. He's starting to get frustrated that people are giving Corey all this credit, and that Corey is somehow pulling the strings. And I think he said something along the lines of like, nobody controls me, or something like that.
There are no strings on me. Yeah.
Nobody controls what I do. And that was really ominous, because right now, up to this point, he's been in a strong group of people, and right now they have all the power. It's an easy vote to get that David, get down to 5 and you're safe. But he opens it up right away, and he says, my target's David, but I'm pissed that people are thinking that's not my decision. And I was really intrigued by that.
Other thing to note as well, I think Phill, he made a great point with this, and they kind of went back and gave a rebuttal. Phill points out, well, with keeping Austin, the same thing could happen in terms of him winning immunity. So when they had the debate between David and Austin, he goes, well, what if Austin wins immunity the next round? It's the same thing as you're saying with the David scenario. So I thought that was a really good point by him, because he is correct. Because then you have to think about, well, if one of those two wins immunity, no longer the 4.
Yeah, and I think something that was a little uncharacteristic here is when we look at Corey, is up to this point, Corey has been very vocal whenever they get in the scramble rounds of, okay, here's what we got to do, and he might not be pulling the strings, but he's vocalizing it, right? He's getting it out there. People are hearing the names. He's pushing for Ryan. He's pushing for he's very active. And in this episode, you see him he says it out loud, right? I don't want to talk. People keep thinking that I'm pulling the strings. So he's almost trying to hide a little bit. And if I was in the game at that point, that would just send flares off of saying, whoa, this guy just completely changed how he's playing the game. What's going on here? Right. And it just happens to coincide with when Corey's trying to make a big move. And I don't know, with the edit and with the timing, if he was doing that before he had talked to David and before he talked to Phill or after, but his mindset was clearly different there. And, I don't know if Karen and them picked up on that. I don't know if when they were sitting in that room, if they realized he's not acting the same way, something's up. Because shortly after that, we see Karen, she plays the loyalty card in that room, right? Like, oh, we got something great going. Don't mess with it. We're great. We're great. Everything's golden. And then she leaves and starts working on Jeremy. And I'm not sure if Corey's change in mannerisms there played any role in that, or if it was just a timing type thing.
Yeah. So in that round, what you see here is and you do hear it from Corey himself, Phill says, I want Austin out. For Corey, at this point in time, I'm thinking he's going, I do see Phill in my final 3. So it works in my benefit to work with him, get out Austin. I still have David here, and you hear David even pitch it like that. I don't know if this was Corey's thoughts, but you have David going, I can be your meat shield at 5.
Yep.
And that could have very well been the case, because that was Karen and Jeremy's objective was, we're in a solid position. We don't need to think about changing and rocking the boat. So there's no incentive for both of them to side with David and take out Austin, when they're both like, Austin would be pretty good to have at final 3, final 4 with over someone because you hear Karen also starting to talk about I don't know if I can go to the end with Phill and Corey and win when they're the ones getting the credit because they're the louder ones. They're the ones more more present because you have Phill winning immunities and Corey's holding tribal.
Yeah, and she mentions Karen as well. She mentions that Austin can't win. It wasn't just vague. Like she says, Austin won't win if he gets to the end. And that's a very confident thing to say. And something that isn't mentioned or seen in the episode, but the way I was interpreting it was Jeremy in a previous episode said, now's the time for me to build a resume. I need to make a move that I can look at people at the end and say, here's when it came down to me making a move that changed the entire game. And I think he's looking at this as part of that. But this is Karen's move, right? In my mind, when I'm watching this feels like a Karen move. She's the one saying, I want to go to the end with you and Austin. Bring Austin in. This is a 3. And no one's suspecting her at all. And if Jeremy had interpreted it that way, then he almost could have flipped it on Karen in a weird way, gone back and let people know. I'm not saying that I didn't play this through my mind, but he has an opportunity here to actually go back, show loyalty to people who might end up on the jury and be like, guys, Karen is pulling strings in the background. She wants, whoever to go and us, to work with so-and-so. And he could have actually taken the reins there. But so far in this game, he seems to be content with where are the numbers going? I just want to be there. And anybody but me kind of deal. And I feel like he's looking at this as a move that he's making, but really I see it as a Karen move at this point.
And that's fair for interpretation. From my perspective, from seeing the diary rooms and having them discuss it to me, it very much felt more shared in it, where it was just so happened that both their ideas aligned on staying the course, because for both of them individually, it made sense. So it was hard for me to give one more credit than the other. That's obviously up for the audience and for the jury.
Well, I wouldn't disagree with that, but when the only thing that I think tips it in Karen's direction a little bit is the fact that when you see them cast their votes, I think Karen knows what's happening. And a lot of time Jeremy is saying, I only heard one name. Here it is. Or I don't know. I hope it works. Here's my vote. And you see Karen in this, in this tribal, she actually says, I'm a gambler. Like she's understanding what's going to happen right here. Whereas I feel like Jeremy is a little bit more like, I hope it works, kind of just more vague. And maybe I'm reading too much into that. Maybe he's just trying to be funny, which it is. It's funny, but it also doesn't look like he's running the math. It doesn't look like he's running the math on his actions there. But like I said, I might be wrong on that.
Well,
and
we'll
get to talk to him
gamble
at some point, right?
You have to gamble in this game. And that's the thing. We've seen on this vote and a previous vote, people went to rocks.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't normally see 2 rock draws in a season. So everyone obviously came to play, because if you're risking to put your butt on the line to potentially go home, especially at final 6, that's a wild move across the board. So everyone that put themselves in that position, they were taking a risk. And the thing about for Phill, great for Phill, who cares? I'm safe.
Yeah.
They're going to go to rocks. So even if Phill knew where the votes were exactly going, that's great on his part as well. I don't know for sure. We can't really interpret that through the episode, but that's another question that we can potentially ask Phill down the line. Hey, what went down with that particular vote? Because if he was thinking that way and knew where everyone was voting, that's a brilliant move. Because
for Phill, it makes sense. And even like for Corey, we can bug him when he gets in here a little bit about what his thought process was. But I look at this as being either the worst move of the season or the best when it comes to Karen, because Jeremy's on there as well, right? When it comes to making that decision. But once again, in the vote, Karen literally says, like, I'm going to gamble or something like that. And the thing is when you look at the numbers, they had in her new alliance that she's trying to form here for her final 3, 2 of them, including herself, are 2 out of the 3 people on the wheel. Her and Jeremy are there.
Yeah.
So what she is saying is, not only am I going to risk my game for Austin, right? I'm going to risk my game for Austin. I'm also going to put me and Jeremy, 2 of the 3 who are working with Austin, on the wheel against one person. That's like a 66% chance, right, of going home versus a 33 for Corey. And that's hard math to gamble on. Do you know what I mean? Especially when she could have just flipped and been safe 100%. But
you don't know that, because we see that she flipped on the other one and it didn't turn out in her favor. So that's the other thing she's contemplating with going into that vote again. Well, I flipped last time and someone else decided to flip, so then we went to rocks anyway. So she had to think through a couple different scenarios. I think. Well, and I'm curious. This is my thought. I think if that first rock draw didn't happen, I honestly think she might have flipped.
Well, and hopefully we get a chance to ask her that, because, like I said, this is, and when you look at, I have a screenshot of the wheel up beside me right now of how it ended. It is a sliver.
Yeah, it is.
Before she goes home to save Austin, right? Like that. Mm-hmm. And can we just mention that Austin has been saved now twice?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
By going to the wheel. People have risked their game for Austin twice. And I get it, the votes flipped around and all that good stuff, but that's just a fact. He was voted out almost twice and is still around. So it's
wild they did it for David. They're all saying how big of a target David is, and they go to rocks for him. That's crazy as well. But with that, let's bring in the guy who was ultimately rocked out of this game at final 6, Mr. Corey Conway. Come on in.
Going on?
What's going on, Corey?
Not much.
We recapped your episode, went through everything, but was it tough to watch back? Because it's very difficult to be going out on rocks, I'm sure.
Not at all. Not at all. I've, Lauren, we've done this a couple of times now. I'm going to have to figure out a way to maybe not have an interview with you until the finale, at least. But of all the times that I've been eliminated, this was by far the one I was the most satisfied with. And, which might shock some people.
Well, and that's interesting for you to say it that way too.
Why is that?
Well, just that, going out to rocks, and that's one of the more satisfying ways to go. Like that, I don't know. I've never been there, and hopefully I never am. But that just feels like a strange opinion. But you know what? You were voted out. People didn't stab you in the back. People didn't blindside you.
I went into that tribal council preparing myself for the very strong possibility it could be a 5-1 vote. Corey, get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
And nobody voted for me. So I took that, and David really came at me in that tribal, really pitching some good ideas to the other people. And I basically was talking to not David. I was exchanging with David, but I was talking to my allies and saying, if you vote with David, is it his move or your move?
I think that was the perfect reply, because that was his whole pitch was, listen, guys, you're getting to the end of the game. You got to show that you've made a move. What are you going to say when you get to the end? And all you did was follow this guy. Now's your chance to make a move. And you said, yeah, but this is your move, David. And then that kind of killed all the momentum on that, because everybody listening is like, well, that's true. I'm just following him instead of people thinking I'm following Corey. And
yeah, I've been there. I've seen people make moves thinking that they were going to be getting credit for it, and then they were never going to get credit for it. I've seen it happen so many times. So I was like, let me just say, if I'm on the jury, I got to give David the credit here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
go ahead.
Yeah. And see, with those types of arguments, you have, it only works if part of your argument is knowing that eventually you're going out, because if you're not in Final Tribal, you don't get to take the credit for the moves. The person at Final Tribal gets to take the credit because, look, I'm still standing here. That move got me here. It didn't get you here. So now it's my move.
I would say as a juror, I would have to give them their due credit. I can't give them the credit for David's argument of the move, but they would be due their credit for having gotten me out of the game. You're right.
Yeah, so after
it goes both ways. It goes both ways. Yes, if he's the one that's convincing someone to do it and that person takes the bait, but ultimately it can swing both ways how you make the argument. If you get to the final and you can spin it to yourself saying, yes, I let him convince me by his words, but I took action and I was able to maneuver to get myself here. If you give a strong pitch at the end, you can be dangerous, even though it could potentially be his move because he did the talking and convinced you.
Well, if I'm a juror, and I've been on plenty of juries at this point, unfortunately, my question is then going to be, okay, well, what was your thought process for after you make this move? I need to know what your game plan is. If you're going to make that move at that time, what are the moves that you're already thinking at that point? Mm-hmm. At Final 6, if you're going to blindside me, what are the thoughts that at Final 6, where is your mind at when you get to 5, when you get to 4, so that I can understand the thought process?
Yeah, the why is really important, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the what and the when, right? The why is important. But speaking of people, talking up at Tribal and speaking up at Tribal, one of the questions that I had was, there was a moment where something, we don't get to see it as a viewer, but there was a name on McKenna, something that says like, I have a clue or something. Someone read it out.
Oh.
And you're somebody who speaks up at Tribal. And Phill says, well, I'm just seeing McKenna's name here. And you say, yeah, I saw that too. And then Phill says, can I have that clue?
McKenna, I think her name I can't remember exactly. Hadn't her name, Lauren, just changed within like a 10-second window of that? Or was it like that the whole Tribal?
No. It changed at Tribal Council.
Yeah, it was only a specific timeline.
Right. So when that got noticed, I probably noticed it at the same time everyone else did.
Yeah. Why didn't you ask for it? Why didn't you say, can I have that? Whatever that is, can I have it? You have a clue? Can I play an Adam? I want that. Can I play that? Can I play your name?
Because when it happens in the moment, here's the thing. That's a very strange incident because it happens openly in front of everybody. Yeah. I think even people like Frank in the previous game that I played in, when he saw what was going on with Lauren's background for steal a vote, I'm sure he probably didn't even process it in the first 2 seconds.
Change luck or something.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Change luck, and it takes you a second to really be like, is that what I think it is? So there's usually some time that happens. At least that's what I can tell you from my, that was in my mind.
Yeah, I was screaming at my monitor. I'm like, ask for it. And then Phill says, can I have that? And I'm like, oh, because Phil's got enough as it is. He keeps winning his own immunity idols.
As soon as Phill said that, I was okay with it.
Yeah.
Because Phill was my going to final 2.
Yeah.
For
And we don't
anybody's
know what it is yet. And we don't know what it is yet, right? It could have been a clue to the next challenge. It could have been a vote. It could have been, we don't know yet, right? And I haven't even watched the episode that came out today. Maybe we found out today and I just don't know yet. But no, like, so yeah, that was, and you just spoke about Phill being your final 2. And this is a question that I had too, because one of the themes of your game, from right off the bat, you're not shy about saying, I don't care if we go to rocks. I don't care about idols. I'm loyal. I'm going to stick with my group no matter what it is. And if I go out to rocks, boo-hoo, I'm loyal to my people. And then on this episode, we see you actually flip a little bit and you try to work with David and it kind of bites you in the ass a little bit there. So what was your thought process?
I didn't try to work with David. I just knew that if David gets wind of who the other vote is going on, then he's probably going to put his vote on that person. Phill came to me, and at that point, Phil's the person I'm going to the end with, and he says, Corey, I saved you on that merge vote. Or not on the merge vote, but on the one when Ryan went home.
Yeah.
Can you give me something here? And I said, yes, Phill. Because I had such a huge target on my back. There was something happening in that game that was sort of like not even by my own design, which was people were not just voting against me, but they were bringing my name up at every tribal council. So I had to fight and fight and fight in a way that I don't even really like having to do.
Yeah.
My target is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I said to Phill, you take the lead on this one. I'll go with what you want to do.
Yeah. And I mentioned a moment ago that in this episode, we see your mannerisms change where you say, you know what? I'm not saying anything. I'm just going to sit here because people keep blaming me for everything. And I mentioned that I wonder if that worked against you in a way, because for some people who have played with you or even just on this season have played with you, all of a sudden your gameplay style changes. And do you think that, set off any red flags to anybody saying something is different with Corey? Let's keep an eye on him. Maybe we got to work something without him.
Maybe with Karen, probably. With Jeremy, no. Okay. With Jeremy was already in most of the games I play, I always end up having that person that I'm working with in an alliance where I kind of know they're going to come at me at a certain point and I'm going to come at them too. Jeremy in this season just happened to be that guy where I kind of always knew that I'm the guy Jeremy's going to come after.
Okay.
So I kind of knew that Jeremy was going to be up to something, but I felt very confident with Karen and Phill. I really did.
Yeah.
Now I have to ask you, did you feel confident with them because you previously knew them, or how did that dynamic work? Because we saw sometimes in the season, other people were trying to work with people that they didn't know anything about. Do you think it was just a comfort thing for you?
No, with Karen, maybe a little bit with Karen, but at the same time, there were situations like when the merge vote happened and Phill tells me he flipped. So I know someone on our side did. Karen was the first person that came to mind as maybe the one who did, because I thought maybe she's afraid of going to rocks, that she's not willing to go to rocks for other people.
Yeah.
But then when stuff started happening where Jeremy's saying, I'm a little suspicious of Austin. Okay, so I had to keep that a secret for a round or two because I didn't want to expose to everybody that I knew one of ours flipped.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to reveal to Ryan, who was still in the game, and Carlo and Annie, I didn't want to reveal to them that Phill had flipped as well. So I kept that a secret for like a whole round that I knew that someone on our side had flipped.
Yeah.
We get after the Ryan vote, and that's when Jeremy starts telling me he's a little suspicious of Austin maybe being the one who flipped. And that's when Phill says something to me that goes, but Austin couldn't have flipped because he was the one who got voted against.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Phill, you're absolutely right. So that took all the attention off of Karen. And I started thinking about Jeremy a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't see Karen's name at this point in the show. We haven't seen her name mentioned. Honestly, I can't remember anybody mentioning her name. And I've mentioned that in the last 2 or 3 exits where people are debating heavily on, it's Jeremy. At one point you're like, it has to be Jeremy. He just screwed up. because of what you just said, right? And then Jeremy's like, oh, it's Austin. And then well, then even before that, well, it must have been Nick that flipped. And all this, like everybody was being mentioned except for Karen. And then Karen comes in, right? Karen comes in the room, or in a lot of these meetings, breakout rooms, and starts giving you guys information perfectly, right? The perfect ally. She comes in and she gives you everything she just heard. And immediately your brain is thinking, here's a friend, right? Here's an ally. She's telling me who they're suspicious of. She's telling me who they're voting for. She's with me. And that's it. Conversation moves on. Nobody thinks about her.
I think I said it to someone at one point. I don't think it made it into the episode. I called her Bad News Karen at one point because she was, I think I said to somebody, oh, Bad News Karen's going to come in here any second now and tell me what's going on. But yeah, so that was perfectly timed for Karen. And I don't even know if that was within Karen's control. That just sort of happened naturally, where my mind has come now off of her as being the one who potentially flipped, even though she was the first one.
Yeah.
The irony is that she was the first one I thought maybe she was just not willing to go to Rocks out of fear of going to Rocks.
Mm.
And then she was the last one on my mind. And then she pops in and does the perfect ally shtick.
Yeah. So I got a question. Yeah. So I got a question for you too. So because I was doing your DRs, you were quick with them, but you still gave me enough knowledge to know what you were thinking. And I was very true at like final 9, final 8, and final 7. You were saying, I need to make a move at some point. I have to make a move within my group. It's probably going to be on Jeremy, but I need to wait till this right moment. And if, say, your game, just due to the circumstances of the game, you were out in front just because you were the name that was being thrown at, you were the one who has to defend himself at Tribal. If you weren't in that spot, was it possible you make that move at 7 when you have Carlo and David there at your disposal, where you could be like, hey, you guys, if you put your names there, I will get this vote split. I will switch my vote, and I'll take out Jeremy with you guys.
With the opposition?
Potentially. Or you make it in a way like I said in the last exit interview, where you find a way to get David's idol burned, but you still get the votes on Jeremy instead, so you get the best of both worlds.
That is something I could have maybe done. Is maybe like, no, I just need to get like a vote or two on Jeremy because David's going to play his idol. Yeah, so not going to the opposition. That's not really the way that I play. I mean, people talk about changing the styles of gameplay, and maybe that's something I'll have to consider in a future game. But typically when I'm, that's not usually the way I think about going. I usually try to see where the politics within my alliance is. And usually I'm a lot more comfortable in a position of being like second or third on a totem pole, if you will.
Yep.
Like having a person like, the infamous Frank Goodpaster as being the mouthpiece of an alliance, and me being the guy who I'm talking just as much as Frank in private conversations about what to do, but I'm not the guy everybody's looking at. That's where I thrive. And that wasn't the case with this season. But if I wasn't out in the open, then I would have had to have seen what was going on within the inner politics of my alliance in order to make that move at 7. Once you get down to 6 or 5 is where I was thinking about Jeremy.
Okay. That's fair. And that's completely fair.
Well,
I get that. I just needed to know. But Lauren, do we have any good Facebook questions?
Yeah, I was going to get into that. I have a couple good ones, I think.
Okay.
Have you looked at them prior to? I always want to know this.
I looked at a few, but there may be some more that I haven't seen.
I got some added ones, so this will be good. But I'm going to start from the top, from Mr. Frank Goodpaster. And your long history of online games, who is your favorite alliance member? Now, this is a question you should not F up.
Right. I would say I've got 2 alliance members.
They asked for one.
One.
Oh, so not a social and a strategic?
Nope, just one.
It says a favorite alliance member.
Okay.
You gotta pick.
Alliance member would be Frank.
Why?
That's a hard one for me to say because, like I said, I break it into like there's a social alliance member I have who's like my comfort person. Then there's the person I talk all this strategy with. But Frank also is a great guy to be able to have conversations with too. So in my history of playing games, I would say that yes, Frank Goodpaster is probably the favorite alliance member.
I can picture somebody ripping your face off when they see that answer, but we'll have to see how that comes off.
Oh, I know.
But with that, I will.
No. Let me just say, it is well earned for that person not to be.
Yeah.
Member.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but with that, I will change it so that it's in the parameters of this season. So if you went into this season, I think it's the answer. Who in this season was your favorite alliance member?
Okay. Oh man. My
These
favorite
questions are fun.
This is tough.
I can't believe you're answering them.
No,
There are no wrong answers.
I asked a question.
I'm not afraid
no
to
wrong
answer.
answers.
No.
They're all wrong answers.
Not to me.
Yeah, but Robbie, I shouldn't be talking as loud and often as I do at tribal council. And what do I do?
Yeah, fair enough.
I guess because he was loyal to me, Phill. Like Phill he saved me. He saved me. I would have been fourth out in this game if it wasn't for Phill.
Yeah.
There you go. Next question, Lauren.
All right. From Melissa. You seemed genuinely impressed by your rock out. First time I had seen that emotion. Were you or were you shocked?
Both, because having been on the receiving end of a big brutal blindside before, when I was not expecting it, versus having this happen when I was expecting it, or expecting to maybe be voted out at any time. This came to me as like a little bit of a victory in some ways because I didn't get any votes cast against me at that tribal.
Yeah.
My thought process going in, I think maybe some people are wondering, why wouldn't you vote David or something on the revote? And I thought about doing that, but I thought I've already burned a bridge with Austin by voting him. So if I stick with this vote here, I've got to find out. I knew Jeremy had flipped. I needed to find out who of the other two, Karen or Phill, was the other one who had flipped. So my thought process is, if I luck out here and Jeremy is the one, 33% chance that Jeremy draws that rock or gets the wheel spun on him. If by some miracle I can get David to maybe work with us, or if Phill actually got that immunity idol, and one of the two of him and I, if it's 3 versus 2 at final 5, and Phill can win immunity or I can win immunity, and he has the idol, I was like, that is really my only play at this point. I cannot go and vote David because now Karen, Jeremy, and Austin could all team up and just go after me and Phill.
Yeah.
Well, you could pin the vote on somebody else. We've seen that happen before. Because
Or you could say,
he doesn't know 100%
I don't know.
that you voted for him. You say, that's the thing. You can easily pin it on somebody else.
Yeah.
That's an
Phil's
option.
classic answer. I don't
know.
Phil, did you flip? I don't know.
I don't know. Are you working with the other side?
Yeah, I think
I might be.
I think Corey nailed it though. I mean, you had a 66% chance, whatever, 2/3 chance that the people who weren't working with you, one of them was going home.
Right.
Right. And you were this far on the wheel
From that
happening.
If I at least vote with David again and go Austin, I at least, if I make it through, preserve the fact that I didn't get rid of David after I've already burned the bridge with Austin.
Well, so I'm also surprised that Phill didn't switch too, because in a weird way, because Phill could have saved you, right, from going to the wheel. Because if Phill would have switched his vote, and he could have, and then you guys could have went back to the other side and been like, guys, like, we talked, we all said it was going to be this vote. Like, what happened? And play dumb or whatever, and hope that it works. But then you're down 3-2 at that point, and you guys got to win out. Some challenges here, but I don't know. I think if I was in your position, I mentioned a minute ago that if I was in Karen's position, I think it was a huge mistake because you risked 2/3 of the wheel were your allies, you and one of your people. Where in your case, I think it's the opposite. I think 2/3 of the wheel were your opposition, and you were 1/3. And that's pretty good math. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
Yeah,
and once again, it's a good move, right? You can justify that at the end.
In some ways, it's like I'm willing to go to rocks to save other people.
Yeah.
I'm also willing to go to rocks to save myself, of course.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know,
Because I'm thinking about it not about right now. I'm thinking about it at Final 5. What is the best option I do here so that I'm in the best spot at Final 5? I can't just be thinking right now about I need to get through 6 to get to 5, because I might be all by myself after this because I've just burned a huge bridge with Austin.
Yeah. And that's the weird and ironic thing about a wheel. It doesn't matter how much the percentages are on you. Lady Luck just wants one slice.
Yeah, fair enough.
I love it.
Well, with that, Carlo wants to know, well, he has a statement first, then a question.
Okay.
Thanks
Bring
for
it
the
on, Carlo.
excellent time we shared at Ponderosa. It was a pure blast talking everything and analyzing the game. What's your favorite move in the game so far? So everything that we've seen up until your boot, what is your favorite thing that you've seen so far?
Karen being willing to go to rocks. I'm impressed by it. As I understand, Robbie, you said the math is very much not in her favor,
Horrible.
but I'm impressed by it because she's got some guts.
Yeah.
to go
And it's
do
not
that.
like she doesn't understand. She says it. She says, I'm going to gamble here. Like, she knows. And and that's the thing. You got to give her credit because it's a choice, right? It's not like she didn't understand what was happening and that it would be a 2/3. She said, I'm going for it. Let's make it happen.
Oh, and she was not willing to go for it at 10, but
Yeah.
she's willing to go for it at 6 when we're getting down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
So I love it.
Well, I brought this up. You weren't in here, but the other thing you have to look at too, if that didn't happen at 10, she might have on that round flipped her vote, because what she did was she flipped it at 10, someone else flipped, so therefore she had to go rid of rocks anyway. So maybe in her mind she's thinking someone else is going to flip, so I'm just going to stay where I'm at this time.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But that's a question down the road that we need to ask when we do get to chat with her.
Yeah, definitely.
But speaking of Karen, she wants to know, where did I fit into your end game?
Final 3. My plans were to go to the final 3 with Karen and Phill. Because I had promised Phill final 2, if it turned out to be a final 2, I would have voted out Karen and gone with Phill, because I never promised Karen final 2. We talked about the 4. We talked about the 4 with her, Phill, Jeremy, and Karen. But I never promised Jeremy or Karen, like, I'll go all the way final 2 with you.
Mm-hmm.
I did with Phill, and I would have stuck to that if I'd have been at final 3 with Karen.
Well, that's been your brand this whole season, has been I pick people to work with, and as long as the game allows, I'm working with those people. So I think that fits your brand so far for this season. So that makes sense. I got a question for you. Early on in the season, this is kind of off topic a little bit, but early on in the season, you and Nick almost seemed to play a carbon copy of the same game starting off, where he would talk, you would talk. He would say something confident, you say something confident. I'm in. And like, what did you think of Nick? This is Nick's first game, and I loved his play style.
Nick was the guy that I thought to myself, I'm like, this is the guy that could be the mouthpiece of the alliance and not myself. But at the same time, I felt like he was the glue that was holding Jeremy and Austin together. So when the wheel fell on Nick at the merge vote, it was like a curse and a blessing at the same time, because I was like, not only does the potential mouthpiece that I can hide behind go, and that's nothing bad on Nick. He's just, even in that tribal where I fought with Ryan, he probably talked close to as much as I did.
Oh yeah, he threw a bunch of stuff out.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I thought when he got that wheel that landed on him, I was like, that breaks up Jeremy and Austin just that little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I could slide in and maybe get Jeremy to be more with me than Austin for just a little while. But the thing was, when we went to our first tribal, I landed in a breakout room, or we stayed in one, I think, and the other two, Dan and Karen, left. And I was in a room with Nick, Austin, and Jeremy, and I could tell right away. I could see with the body that they were a three. They were a trio. They were a threesome. And I was like, I have to become their fourth.
Yeah.
Like, I have to be their fourth and then contribute a voice as to who I think should go and who should stay between Dan and Karen.
Yeah.
So
That makes sense.
and then she rocks me out.
So I have one more question, and then I have a statement to read.
Oh.
So the last question I have is from John. What aspect about your game do you think you need to adjust in order to not be seen as such a threat when you get to this point in the game?
Oh man. At this point in the game, when you're getting down to final 7, final 6, I would say that maybe I need to start reading the inner politics of my alliance, because this is now the second time where I've tried to make a move on someone within the alliance that I thought we could get out, and the people within the alliance were going, no, we're going to go after you. So maybe trying to read the inner politics of my alliance a little bit better. Because I get so focused on the opposition that I'm sometimes not paying as much attention as I should to the people within.
Well, and the framework for this was really put in place by Ryan when he built a target on you so big. And a lot of times we forget when we're watching this as viewers that, yeah, we get an episode every couple days, but the things that we see happened 20 minutes ago for you, happened an hour ago for you. So Ryan putting this target on you for 3 hours or 4 hours or whatever it was, like constantly mentioning you, putting the votes towards you, getting Carlo and Annie to just be obsessed with voting you, David having to vote you because that's where the numbers were. Everybody, like all of that really started, in my opinion, with Ryan. And at that point, we're only talking a couple hours later, the target's still there. And, you know, you're almost, you know, it's not a Kobayashi Maru here. Like you're not, there's no option, but you're getting pretty close. You know what I mean? Like it was getting, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know. I think the target was too big. I think, yeah. I don't know.
Oh yeah. It was huge.
All right. I have a statement, and this will wrap up the interview because it's, you know, you got to end on a great statement, right?
Who's it from?
It's from Denny.
Oh, God.
My mouth gets me into trouble. Those were your exact words. Why not just zip it? I mean, at least halfway.
I mean, wow. No, she's totally right though. Especially in this season in particular. You know, there were probably some different routes I could have taken within those tribals. Maybe not so much in the David one, but with the Ryan one especially. There was some different routes that I could have taken to, in some ways, try to play back a little bit, but also be, you know, strong in my argument. He took me by surprise so much at that tribal. It just boom hit me out of left field, and I was like, oh, okay, well I'm in this now. I'm in a fight with Ryan Grindle in tribal council. But with the David one, it was like that was all I could say.
Yeah.
Was your move or his move, you know? I would say that, yeah, I should probably zip it when it comes to in the rooms. I guess I don't have to be the first one to talk every single time that I'm in a breakout room with somebody. I don't have to always be like, hey, what are you thinking? Every single time I enter a room with somebody.
Yeah. But I mean, it's only fitting to end that on Denny's note. But Corey, is there anything else you want to say that we didn't cover that you want the people to know about?
Just that this season was so much fun to play. I had an absolute, this was the most fun that I had, I think, of any of my org experiences. The production team was such a blast to be a part of. You guys had like a contagious energy that came onto the players while we were playing. It was so much fun. And I want to thank you guys for putting on such a great season. Great game.
We appreciate that. And obviously, thank you guys all for playing. I mean, that's what it is. It's the players. We only do the production side, but if we don't have a great cast, then we're not going to have a great season. So thanks, Corey, for joining us tonight. Robbie, thank you as always for being on here for these exit interviews. It's been a blast. And thank you, Alex, for joining us again So episode number 8 did already drop tonight on the page, so be on the lookout for that. We're also going to try and get Annie on sometime this weekend for her to do her exit interview. And then whoever got eliminated, voted out of episode number 8, we will be getting in contact with them to do their exit interview. But with that, that's all I got for you guys. We're out.